This year, the Champions League has a brand new format and it looks confusing as hell. I mean, look at this. Where do you even begin? Well, in this video, we're actually going to begin with Real Madrid and work our way through all 36 teams to see who wins when we sim every single game in FC 24. So these are the 8 teams Real Madrid has to play against in the league phase of the tournament. So the teams on the left side are the ones they're supposed to play at home, and the teams on the right are the away matches. But in FC 24, to set things exactly in this manner, one by one, would have taken me way longer than it actually took me to make this video. So to save time, I just let the game determine which ones are played at home and which ones are away. So in Real Madrid's case, the first match will be away at Stade Brestois. This is how Real Madrid's gonna be lining up. I've tried updating all the squads as much as I could, and when we sim the match, Real Madrid wins it 3-1. And then we head back over to our standings, where Real Madrid now has 3 points, and I'm gonna be updating this table one by one after every single match has been simmed. And when we sim the rest of Real Madrid's matches, they managed to collect 19 points. Now we're gonna repeat the same process for the remaining 35 teams, but for now, with only Real Madrid's matches having been played, this is what the table will look like. You'll notice, for example, Liverpool has 18 points here, but we're only going to count the 3 points they got from beating Real Madrid, because when it's time to sim Liverpool's matches, we're not going to simulate the one against Real Madrid because we've already done it here, and Liverpool won that match 3-1. Now moving on to the next team, we've got Manchester City. They're the second team in pot 1, and these are the matches they have to play. Fairly easy draw for City, and here they start off with a surprising draw against Sparta Prague. Oh, and by the way, Slovan Bratislava's missing from FC 24, so I've replaced them with HJK Helsinki. And after simming all 8 matches, Manchester City only managed to get 11 points, and I don't think 11 points will be enough to finish in the top 8. Oh, and also, if you didn't notice, with the new format, the teams that finish in the top 8 go directly into the round of 16, while the teams that finish between 9th and 24th will have to play against each other, and the winners of those playoff matchups will move on to complete the round of 16. Now moving on to our third team, Bayern Munich, and they've been matched up against Barcelona yet again. And when we sim the match for this inseparable duo, Bayern takes it 2-1. And at the end of all their matches, Bayern manages to collect 18 points. And in our standings, this puts them in second place, right behind Real Madrid. Now our fourth team is PSG, and they have the toughest draw by far. Not only they have to play against City, Bayern, Atletico, Arsenal, but they've also got PSV, Salzburg, Girona, and Stuttgart, which aren't the worst teams in the competition. Oh, and by the way, when we just sim Bayern's matches, PSG actually lost to them 2-0, and I made a note of that here, and I've also kept track of all the other matches that have been simmed on this chart. So it may look very complicated, but I'm doing this so we don't play any matches that have already been played. Now, by the same token, when we were simming Manchester City matches, PSG played against them, and they won the match 2-1. And because PSG now only has to play 6 matches, that's why you see 7 teams in this group. And when we sim those 6 matches, PSG goes 6-4-6, collecting 18 points. So when we add the 3 points from the Man City win to the 18, PSG now takes over the top of the table with 21 points. I've also added the loss from Bayern Munich to their final tally. And now our 5th team is Liverpool. And if you'll remember, they already have 3 points from beating Real Madrid. And when we sim their remaining 7 matches, they end up with 15 points for a total of 18 points, moving ahead of Bayern Munich. Now next up, we've got Inter Milan. They've already played against Manchester City, and that match ended 2-2. So they still have to play 7 matches. One thing to note, Red Star Belgrade is not an FC 24, so I've replaced them with Apoel. And at the end of these 7 matches, Inter could only manage to collect 9 points, and when we add the 1 point from Manchester City, they're currently sitting in 6th place with 10 points. Now next up, we've got the other finalists from last year's competition, Borussia Dortmund, and I think by far they have the best draw out of all the pot 1 teams. They had already lost to Real Madrid 3-0, and after simming the remaining 7 matches, Dortmund ended up with 11 points. And if you're a Dortmund fan, that's gonna be pretty disappointing. Next up, we've got another German team. It's Leipzig. They had already played against Liverpool and Inter, so apparently they lost to Liverpool 2-1, and they beat Inter 2-1. And their remaining 6 matches don't look that easy, and from these 6 matches, they end up collecting 12 points for a total of 15 points, moving right behind Bayern into 5th place. Now moving on to the final team in pot 1, Barcelona. They've already played against Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. They lost to Bayern 2-1, and they beat Dortmund 2-1. And now their remaining 6 matches matches don't look all that hard, and they end up winning 5 of them and drawing 1 for a total of 16 points. And then adding the 3 points from the Dortmund win, they end up with 19 points, moving into 3rd place right behind Real Madrid. Now that we're finished with pot 1, for pots 2, 3, and 4, I'm just gonna quickly simulate everything. I'm not gonna show you everything in detail one by one.
One eternity later.
And following many hours of simulating, we're finally done. I've noted everything down. Guys, it may seem simple, but it took a lot of effort. So if you don't mind hitting the like button and subscribing if you're new, I would greatly appreciate it. And now there we have it. This is the final table. PSG surprisingly topped it. Real Madrid finished 2nd, Barcelona in 3rd. Man City finished all the way down in 16th. Leverkusen surprisingly didn't even make the playoffs. And also the rest of the teams that got knocked out is something that you could expect, I guess. I mean, Girona and Stuttgart, maybe expect them to finish better than Dinamo Zagreb and Sparta Prague. But at the end of the day, I'm really curious to see how the real world league phase will compare to our results over here. Now, for the playoff matchups, I wasn't really sure if it was going to be 9th against 24th, 10th against 23rd, and so on until after I filmed this video. So I've simulated everything and I'm commentating over it, but ever since I simmed it, I figured out how it works. It's actually either of 9th or 10th place playing against either of 23rd and 24th. So if the 10th place got drawn against the 24th place, then the 9th place would play against the 23rd place. These are all going to happen in a second draw after the league phase. But as for this video, we're going to have to pretend 9th got 24th, 10th got 23rd, 11th got 22nd, and so on. So for our first matchup, we've got Benfica against Feyenoord. Now the playoff matches will be played home and away, so we'll do the same thing in the game. And Benfica wins the first match at home 3-2, and they also win the second match 3-0 away, and they comfortably move into the round of 16. Now next up, we've got Dinamo Zagreb taking on AC Milan. The first match ends 1-1, and in the second match, which also ended 1-1, Milan wins it on penalties. Now our third playoff matchup is Leipzig versus Aston Villa, and Leipzig wins the first match at home 2-0, and in the second match, Villa failed to score yet again as Leipzig moves on to the round of 16. Next up, we've got an all-Italian affair, Juve taking on Atalanta. Now one thing to note here, there are no limitations as to whether two teams from the same country can face each other in the playoff round or even the round of 16, so that's why we have two Italian teams facing each other. And Juve destroys Atalanta in the first match 4-0, and they also win the second match comfortably, moving on to the round of 16. Our fifth playoff matchup is Inter versus Celtic. The first match ends 2-2, and Inter destroys Celtic in the return leg 5-1. Our sixth playoff matchup is PSV taking on Dortmund. Dortmund wins the first match 3-2 away, and the return leg ends by the same score to PSV, so it went to penalties and Dortmund won it. Our seventh playoff matchup is Lille taking on Sparta Prague, and Lille wins it at home 3-1. Then they also win the away leg 2-0 to move on to the round of 16. And our final playoff matchup is Monaco taking on Manchester City. And the first match ends 3-3, and Manchester City cut it close, but they won the away leg 3-1 to go on to the round of 16. Now here we can see all the teams that made it into the round of 16, and I'm just gonna pair them up with the first playing the 21st, the second playing the 20th, and so on, just like we did with the playoff matchups. Now the correct way would have been to follow this tree, but I didn't have access to it prior to filming this video. So this is what the round of 16 in our video looks like. Manchester City takes on Liverpool. Then you have Real Madrid, the title holders, taking on Inter Milan. But first, we're gonna kick things off with PSG versus Juve. Juventus wins the first match 2-1, but in the return leg, PSG completes the comeback and they move on to the quarterfinals. Next up, we have Sporting taking on Lille, and Sporting wins it at home 2-1. And Lille wins the second match by the same score, so it went to penalties and Sporting came out on top, which means they're going to be taking on PSG in the quarterfinals. Now, our third round of 16 matchup is Milan versus Atletico, and Atletico wins the first match 3-0. Can you believe it? And the second match ends 1-1 in more of a classic Atletico fashion, so they move on to the quarters where they'll face the winner of Barcelona versus Dortmund. The first match ends 1-1 with Yamal scoring in the 89th minute, and Borussia Dortmund wins the second match, eliminating Barcelona in the round of 16. Now, unfortunately, Sebastian Haller did score the winner, and he's not with Dortmund. That's one of the few players I forgot to transfer, so I apologize. Now, next up, we've got Liverpool versus Manchester City, and the first match goes Liverpool's way at Anfield, and Liverpool wins it at the Etihad as well, 3-1. Manchester City did struggle in the league phase, and they're knocked out by Liverpool here. Haaland apparently missed a penalty early on. Szoboszlai scored 2 goals, and Luis Diaz put the nail in the coffin. So Liverpool moves on to the quarterfinals, and they're going to be facing the winner of Arsenal versus Benfica. The first match ends 1-1, and Arsenal bottle it in the return leg. Benfica wins it 2-1. So they're moving on to the quarterfinal to face Liverpool. Next up, we've got the all-German affair, Leipzig taking on Bayern. And the first match away goes to Bayern 2-1, and Bayern takes the second match by the same score as they move into the quarterfinals as well. And our final round of 16 matchup, Inter versus Real Madrid. And Real Madrid wins the first match away 3-2, and the second match ends 2-2 at the Bernabeu. Mbappe with a late equalizer to send this team through to the quarters, and they're going to be facing Bayern Munich there. Now our first quarterfinal matchup is PSG versus Sporting. PSG wins the first match 2-1, and they also win the second match 2-0. Ousmane Dembele scored both goals, so PSG becomes our first semi-finalist. Next up, we've got Dortmund versus Atletico, and Dortmund takes it at home 1-0. And the second match is a draw, Emre Can scoring in the 87th minute to send Dortmund into the semi-finals. Now the third quarterfinal is Benfica versus Liverpool. So the first match ends 2-2, Pavlidis getting a late equalizer, Benfica's new striker, and he also scored the first goal. But the return leg's a different story. Liverpool takes it at home 3-0 as they move on to the semi-final, where they're going to be facing the winner of Real Madrid versus Bayern, and Real Madrid takes the first match at home 2-0, and they also end up winning the return leg, which means our semi-final matchups are now complete. First, we're going to sim Dortmund versus PSG, and the first match ends 2-2, and then Dortmund wins the return leg 3-1. PSG ends up bottling it. Dortmund is in the final once again. Now it's going to be incredible if Real Madrid can take out Liverpool, because that would give us last year's final. The first match ends 1-1, and Real Madrid ends up winning the return leg away, indeed setting up last year's final against Dortmund. Last season, Real Madrid won this final by a score of 2-0 to claim their 15th Champions League title. Now it's time to see how things will go with updated squads. Real Madrid got off to a really quick start with this beautiful backheel pass from Vini Jr. to Mbappe, who scored to make it 1-0. Then in the 26th minute, Dortmund's new striker Girassi missed this incredible chance and failed to even the scoreline. Right after, Mbappe got this great chance but couldn't put the ball past Koval. Despite the miss, Don Carlo kept encouraging his side for more. The first half came to an end with Real Madrid up by a goal. Then right at the beginning of the second half, Emre Can was shown a second yellow after this tackle on Bellingham, and Dortmund was left with 10 men. Real Madrid quickly went on to capitalize with Mbappe getting his second goal of the match. However, Nuri Sahin's side wouldn't give up that easily as Haller pulled one back in the 59th minute. Then they got this glorious opportunity in the final minute of the match but failed to capitalize as Real Madrid went on to win the match 2-1. So even though the format was different, we arrived at the same result with Real Madrid winning yet another Champions League title. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll enjoy this one as well.